Welcome to our channel, $1 Million Made Easy. On this channel, we love to point out different issues that are really vital to your retirement planning. In this video, we want to cover sequence of returns risk. What is it? It refers to the danger that the order and timing of market returns can have on your retirement portfolio. It can be especially damaging when retirees experience market downturns early in their retirement. So what we do on this channel is we use the returns for the S&P 500 for the last 100 years, which as you can see, there's down years. Sometimes there's consecutive down years. That's when it's really problematic when you first retire if you start out with some down years. Let's look at some actual numbers. This is one of the spreadsheets that we use. Let's say, for example, you have $1 million and you want to withdraw $80,000 a year. That would be an 8% withdrawal rate, well above the recommended 4% withdrawal rate. Now, if you did this, and we use the numbers for the last 100 years from 1925 on, if we withdrew this 8%, you would run out of money 34.6% of the time using the numbers for the last 100 years. For example, 1925 numbers, everything starts out good, but then you hit these 4 down years, and you'd actually be running out of money in 18 years. We could pick other years. 1929 is, of course, going to be the worst because you're starting out with 4 down years. Then your money would be gone in as little as 5 years. Now, if you just go a couple years later when you don't have the initial down returns, look at the difference. 1932 numbers. This is a summary box, by the way. You have all kinds of money after these different time periods using 1932 numbers. Let's go ahead and look at a few other ones. How about let's just be 1955 numbers. Still no problem after 30 years. How about 1960 numbers? Now you're running out of money in 19 years. Why? Because things are going along pretty good, but you got some down years. But what really hurts you if you had this set of returns was 1973 and 1974 numbers. In this case, you're running out of money in 19 years. Let's go even more recently. Again, when do these bad returns, down markets, hit you? They hit you early in retirement. For example, if we had numbers like 1996, we had some 4 good years before we got hit with the 3 down years. Then you'd be getting a little bit low after 25 years, but at least it'd be lasting 25 years. So watch what happens as we go forward. Now you're running out of money in 19 years. You have 3 good years before you got hit with the 3 down years. But again, sequence of returns. When these bad years, when these down markets hit you, if they hit you early in your career, watch what happens if we go to the year 2000. 3 down years, you're out of money in 9 years. Now somebody will say, well, don't take 8% of your beginning balance. Take 8% of your remaining balance. So that's what we're going to do here. What that means is you got to really cut back on your expenses. Let me show you right here. We got this growing 80,000, increasing by a COLA of 3%. If you did that, if you withdrew these amounts, you would be out of money in 9 years. But what happens if you take 8% of the remaining balance each year? Let's show you those numbers. So you start out with 80,000, you have a down year. The next year, you can only take 8% of what you have left. What do you have left? You have this 100,000 at a 9% loss, so you're down to 909. You take 80,000 away from that, you're 829. You take 8% of that, you only get 66,000. So if you're planning on retiring at 80,000 and increasing that by 3% each year, the very second year you're down to 66,320. The third year, you're down to 53,000, and just 3 years or 4 years in retirement with these 3 down years, you can only withdraw $37,000 and have your money last. Again, if you don't do that, you're out of money in 9 years if you stick with this right here. If we do a no COLA at all, it lasts a little bit longer, one more year. Again, the problem is you're taking us out too early. Now, what I've done is I've put these videos up on sequence of returns risk, and this is one of the back and forth I had with somebody one time. And they were talking about this 8% rule. And he says, the idea is to be simple. Set the 8% of your total amount. If you have $1 million, you pull 80,000 out. If you end the year with a down year, like you lost 10%, you'd be down to 900,000. So you take 8% of 900,000, you're down to 72,000. So it's really not that complicated. I'm not sure why all the retirement planner folks are make it so complicated. Here's the problem. A lot of people wouldn't be comfortable with the volatility volatility of having 80,000 the first year, planning on that going up, but because the market goes down, you're down to 72,000 the next year, which is 8% of that. Sequence of returns risk is problematic if your first years are down years. That is why most financial planners are concerned about that risk. So again, he responds to me. When you say to the 8% rule doesn't work 30% of the time, we actually look at it right here. We saw it didn't work 35% of the time in the last 100 years. He goes on to say it's disingenuous when it clearly does work, meaning it does work if you're okay with adjusting your living expenses whenever you hit a down market. And he goes on to say guiding folks through why they should potentially care about return risk and other things is interesting, but you're presenting it as a given, which just isn't something everyone cares about. So he's saying it's no big deal. You just adjust your living expenses down. And I simply use the case for the 2008. The market was down 37%. How do you adjust your living expenses that you're planning on? How do you adjust those down 37%? Can you just pay 37% less in insurance or taxes, utilities, groceries? And also the time periods like 73, 74, and we just saw 2000 to 2002, you would have the same problems. Sequence of return risk is not just a theoretical concept. It has real life consequences that you may have to live with. Again, using this right here, 2000 numbers, you start out with 80,000, and by the time you're in the fourth year, you can only take out $37,000. If you follow his reasoning here, just cut back, just adjust your living expenses whenever you hit a down market. Sequence of returns risk shows if you have consecutive down years, you're going to have real problems in some of these time periods. Now let's go to the 73, 74 one. There's also another period of consecutive down years. Right here, you see you're starting with 80,000. And 2 years later, because you had these two down markets, you're taking 8% of what's left, which is what he's saying. You'd only be able to withdraw $40,000. In fact, if you're planning on 80,000, increasing that by a 3% COLA, look what happens, folks. It takes 13 years to even get back close to 80,000, 14 years until you finally get over 80,000. Could you really live with these cutback expenses for all these different periods? That's why this sequence of returns risk is so important. That's why you really got to look at this right here. How many times in the last 100 years would you run out of money if you stuck with 80,000, increasing that by 3% a year, which is probably where you'd plan your retirement? What would happen? 34% of the time you'd actually run out of money after 20 years. Now, again, if you do what he says and just take 8% of the remaining balance, then you have to learn to live on a lot less than what you're planning on if you have these down years. Let's look 1970, see what you might be. Again, because these initial down years are so close to when you first retire, you'd have to really cut back from 80,000. In fact, after those 2 years, you'd be living on $45,000. 6 years into retirement when you were planning on 80,000 and then increasing by a COLA. So again, I just want to answer it. Yes, you could do it if you adjust your living expenses down, but can you afford to do that? Can you afford to take a 37% cut if you had a return like 2008? But that's what we do on this channel. So we love running numbers for people. We love to point out concepts like this and issues that you really need to be aware of. All of them you see listing here. We create videos for all of these. Be sure and check some of the other videos on this channel. Please share this with others. Please subscribe. Please like the videos, and thanks so much for watching.